I just got back from the greatest weekend of my life. Well, as I'm recording this, I just got back. After editing and all the other stuff, it's probably like a month later knowing my track record. Anyway, that's not important. Today, I'm talking about the famous Guys Weekend. Guys Weekend. Ooh, so cool. Something that has become a yearly tradition between me, my cousin, and our mutual friend. Since I moved away from my hometown for work a few years ago, it was a great way for us to reconnect, geek out about games, and even get a little competitive doing races and other challenges. Every year, we pick a weekend sometime in January, way in advance, and we make sure nothing is scheduled during that time. We take off work and tell our families that we're basically going to be completely unavailable. Although my wife and son do come down, they visit family and friends, and I basically never leave the house. Everybody brings a PlayStation and a cheap 32-inch TV. So much fun gets squeezed into those 63 hours, and sleep is minimal. We all start pulling into my friend's house at around 6 o'clock on Friday. Cheap frozen pizza is immediately thrown into the oven, and I start telling them about an idea I had. I've learned a lot of fun and unique ways to play video games, and one that I'm most proud of is being able to play one-handed. It has come in quite handy since I've had a kid, because it makes it possible to hold him in one hand while playing video games in the other. They were impressed to hear the story, so I decided whenever we have downtime that I was going to play Dark Souls Remastered one-handed and try to beat it over the weekend. For some more pizzazz, I asked them what kind of character I should make. They really didn't know because they've never played Dark Souls before, so I just said, hey, pick a D&D class. I'll try my best to replicate it. And of course they said, oh cool, what about Druid? Druid? The class that literally has a super unique mechanic of shapeshifting and that is no way replicable in Dark Souls? Yeah, sure! So we decide that I'll play a Circle of the Land Druid, meaning I will mainly cast spells and can never wear or use anything metal. This restriction will come to bite me in the butt later, but that'll have to wait as our first race is about to start. We all love the Kingdom Hearts series, and some of us have a real soft spot for Birth by Sleep. This game has 3 different storylines you can play that all interweave into each other, basically 3 different perspectives of the same story. So we decided to randomly divvy up each character to someone and see who can finish their story the fastest. The race was off to an amazing start, however my character was a lot more focused on magic, which has a cooldown system attached to it. This meant my damage output was extremely neutered at the beginning, when most of the combat is just whacking everything with your Keyblade. Now that we're at about the halfway point of the game, let's see how everyone's doing. My cousin is flying through the early levels, and is actually way ahead of everyone else's pace. I'm still struggling to get some decent damage numbers, but I'm only a small bit behind. And our friend... Hey Dad, can I play the racing section for you? He took about 4 hours replaying the racing minigame. Rip. So, while we wait for him, if you're still here, that probably means you're enjoying the video. If so, you should subscribe. That's it. That's the pitch. Moving on. Let's check back to see how my cousin's doing. Oh. He's done already. Well, I guess that's a win for him. Or is it? See, we noticed when we were playing that A, like I said before, my damage seemed to be far less than his. And B, my playthrough seemed to have a lot more bosses and cutscenes to go through. So while I was finishing up my run, we clocked his time, and we changed the rules to be how fast we could finish all 3 stories. I finally finished my first run an hour later than him, and began my plan to make a comeback. See, what the other 2 didn't know is that I know of a certain move that is really broken in the game. I used it when I was doing the 100% completion trophy, as it cleaves through a lot of the late game secret bosses. It's called Thunder Surge. It's a dash attack that constantly hurts the enemy while giving you invulnerability frames. You can just spam this thing all day, and if you're lucky, you'll get some items that boost thunder damage. If I can just craft the right recipe and fill all my move slots up with this and healing, I'm guaranteed to pull ahead. And sure enough, it works, exactly as planned. When I finally had everything set up, I flew through the late game bosses, and actually finished my second playthrough before my cousin who had an hour head start. When we tallied both runs together, we only had a minute difference between our times. The stage was set for our final run. We were basically even, and all we had left was to run Ventus to see who was the champion. But it was 3 a.m. at that point, and my son likes to wake up at 6 a.m., so we all pass out on couches and the floor and wait for the fun of tomorrow. It's 7 a.m. the next day, and my friend gets woken up to my son body slamming him in the dark. He thought he was me. His son, however, is still passed out from staying up so late, despite only being 6 years old. This man stayed up till 3 a.m. with us, and the only reason he went to bed was because we all decided we wanted to go to bed. I get some of that good old father-son time while everyone else is asleep, and after my wife wakes up and takes him to see his grandparents, I start making headway into my Dark Souls run. I managed to defeat the first boss using fireball only and NPC summons. Soon everyone wakes up, we get frozen pizza in our bellies, and then we begin the finale of our Kingdom Hearts race. We decided that since we were so close in time, that we should increase the difficulty a little bit, and make sure our TVs are turned away from each other. We didn't want somebody changing their strategy just because they were ahead or behind. Oh, and I wasn't allowed to use Thunder Surge spam again. Fair enough. From the very moment we started, I became very aware that not being able to see your opponent's progress is the most nerve-wracking thing ever. I was always second-guessing if you should take extra time to grind out levels, or if you need to kick your butt into gear and start beating bosses. Even worse, my cousin was pretty much expressionless the entire time, while I was just blabbing away constantly, giving away every context clue imaginable. I eventually even had to turn up the volume of the TV because the dumb rhythm minigame was very difficult to do without sound. It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. Please give me a good score. I finally got to the final boss when I heard the most beautiful noise in the world. My cousin began turning up his TV volume, and It's a Small World started playing. I think I am the first person ever to be happy to hear that song. The only problem is this stupid, dumb boss. This stupid emo Sora is the final boss of the game. His first and second form are very easy. However, the third form is utter nonsense. So apparently, after beating his second form, you lose all access to your healing and abilities, and have to perform a well-timed counter to one of his 4 moves. So basically get assaulted constantly, know all the counters or bait out a specific move that you know how to counter, and each time you perfectly counter, it fills up the gauge a quarter of the way. So never get dealt damage and be perfect 4 times in a row. Easy! I struggled on this guy for like an hour. I could usually get 1 counter down, but then I would immediately die to something else. Oh, and of course if you lose, you have to start all 3 phases over again. Fun! So yeah. Turns out my cousin does know the counters to some of these moves, and his HP pool was so much bigger than mine to allow mess-ups because he was 10 levels higher than me. The whole reason he was so far behind me was because he was grinding so much to make sure that the final boss would be a breeze, and he could focus on those dumb gimmick mechanics. So yeah, I guess the win goes to him. Technically, I don't even have a finishing time because as soon as I figured out I lost, I said screw that guy, and immediately turned off the console. Now that it's closer to dinner time, we cook up some chicken patties and tater tots. We put some football on the screen as the playoffs were happening, and unpack Rome Total War the board game. This thing is a strategy gamer's wet dream. You got economy, troop types, supply logistics, espionage, the whole shebang. Super fun game, if not a little flawed in some parts. We needed a 4th, so I invited one of my friends over who already knew the rules. Which is good, because my lord, this thing took an hour to teach, along with cheat sheets and guides to help. And even then, it would be turn 2, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I didn't even cover how boats work. Either way, the game turned out really well. Armies were clashing all the time. Well, mostly my cousin's armies were clashing my teeth into the pavement. The other 2 tried to form an alliance and stay under the radar, which ended up working out for the best, as me and my cousin weakened each other so much that we were ineffective in the endgame. The friend I invited ended up winning due to his fresh armies just cleaning up our mess. Basically, we'd fight a battle, get super weakened, and then he'd come in and mop us up. I figured due to the game taking like 5 hours and my teaching not being the best that it was a kind of a flop, but everyone told me that they actually had a fun time playing it, and were discussing ways to do better next time. Hooray! After just hanging out and eating more chicken patties, it was around midnight and we said goodbye to my friend so that we could wind down for the night, and probably officially went to bed at around 1 or 2. Only 1 full day left, which was kind of bittersweet. The next morning, our friend had a killer headache, probably because he's used to a normal go-to-sleep early, wake-up early schedule. His kid also was passed out on the couch from partying hard with us again, so after I woke up and played with my son for the morning, me and my cousin decided to play some Magic the Gathering in the kitchen. Once our friend finally emerged from his slumber, we also played a deck-building game called Splendor, which I would highly recommend, as it took like 5 minutes to teach me how to play. While lunch was being made, I decided to further my Dark Souls run, which finally was starting to take shape. I ran into a problem early on, where after the first main boss, I only had access to a basic fireball and lightning spell. Great damage, but sometimes the boss's health pool was bigger than the amount of spells I had, and the casting time for those two take forever to pull off. Like seriously, what's a boss gonna do? Just stand there while I cast this thing? I needed more spells, but the person who sells them was locked behind a door that requires me to beat a boss in a tiny room where I can't cast my spells without getting hit out of them. This wouldn't be as big of a deal if I could wear some heavy armor, but if you recall, I'm not allowed to wear metal. The only other seller in the game requires me to have an upgraded pyromancy flame, which can only be upgraded by, you guessed it, the guy behind the locked door. I was lost. How was I going to solve this problem? Think. Oh, wait a minute. After a little bit of Googling, it turns out there was one seller who can upgrade my pyromancy flame, and the person right next to them also gives me another pyromancy. The run is saved! I upgrade my flame, find the vendor, and start getting better pyromancies. With these, I begin cleaving through bosses all the way up to Ornstein and Smo. But that can wait, because as we eat leftovers for lunch, we start discussing what to do next. We talk about how we would love to race Skyrim, but we weren't sure how. Do we try to reach a certain level, beat the main story, kill the most people, accrue the most gold? But then I remembered, I've been watching a lot of my favorite streamers do bingo races. In a bingo race, a bingo card is generated with different random tasks for the player to do in the game. Something as easy as die a certain amount of times, or as convoluted as complete the entire main quest line. Or, something as silly as eat 15 sweet rolls. One task I had to do was to eat 150 food items, so my character was pillaging every kitchen in Skyrim. Nobody's sweet roll was safe. So anyway, we generated the board and started sprinting through Helgen. My plan was to get to Whiterun as quickly as possible, but first, I have to die 15 times. Just give it a minute. Okay, after that distraction, I noticed that there were some tasks that involved having a certain number of spells and getting a School of Magic to level 55, which would seem impossible, but ya boy has a secret tech he picked up. After getting as much gold as possible, I purchased the cheapest spells I can find, and also, the most important one to our plan, Muffle. Muffle is a kind of mediocre spell. It basically masks your footsteps so no one can hear you, which is cool, but let's be honest, you can get this effect through a good sneak stat. It's also apprentice level, so only dedicated mages usually can cast it. However, it has a wonderful property. It gives you XP based on how many people can't hear you when you cast the spell. Every single person. So if we say, stand in the middle of Whiterun and cast Muffle, you immediately gain 1 to 2 levels in Illusion, because it's counting every single person in Whiterun not being able to hear you. It pretty much uses all of your magic at once. But if only there was a way to quickly regain magic in a non-combat setting. Oh wait, we can just wait an hour and immediately get our magic back. Rinse, repeat, and you will get to level 55 in no time. And you'll have a bunch of perks that you can spend on other things. It was a genius start. So genius, in fact, that I realized my rivals didn't know any exploits like that. They said they played Skyrim, but apparently I have played way more Skyrim than they have. They didn't even know how to cheese Feindal to get level 50 archery at the beginning of the game. Also, a lot of these tasks were about acquiring specific items and getting to a certain level that meant my exploits were super relevant. Whatever, victory on the board. I felt a little bad about that, but they said they wanted to try again. Oh, and now that his kid was up, we put a fourth TV next to ours so that he could play the racing minigame while we play ours. Distraction complete! We generated a bunch of different bingo boards and tried to find one that seemed a bit more fair. The one that we finally agreed on seemed to have a lot more tasks about getting certain quests, and it seemed my usual cheeses and knowledge wouldn't be as much of a help. Time for round 2. For this one, my cousin started strong, taking every option he could that was able to be done in 5 minutes, like go to prison. Meanwhile, I decided to take a more calculated approach. Or maybe stupid, I'm not sure. I saw a lot of tasks that would require me to do similar actions to accomplish. However, those actions would take a while to complete, so I quickly devised a route that completed some smaller tasks while slowly making headway toward the main goals. One of those small tasks was being able to complete 5 side quests. And here's a pop quiz. What exactly is a side quest in Skyrim? Because apparently, I had no freaking clue. At first I thought it was a miscellaneous quest, but I quickly proved that one wrong. Then I was like, oh, maybe it's just a named quest that isn't part of the main quest storyline. Also no, because as I started doing those, some counted towards side quests, but others didn't. So after a lot of trial and error, it turns out a side quest is a named quest that is not part of the main story and isn't affiliated with any faction quest lines. This took way too long to figure out, but either way, we figured it out, completed some other stuff, and I was about tied with my cousin in total quests. And I know he has a couple of them basically under his belt, because this entire time, his route has involved going through the main storyline. Not only have the scripted events helped him with tasks like gaining shouts and killing dragons, but there's actually tasks that simply say, complete this specific main story quest. Since I haven't even started with the main story, they're basically his. Not good. However, maybe I can steal this one from him? Because he's not exactly looking for it. Although the main story has him completing dungeons that have dragon claws in them, if I can just run around and find as many tombs as possible, and hopefully find the claw really early in the dungeon or just outside of the dungeon, I can maybe steal it from him. And apparently, that's exactly what happened. Score! Yeah, apparently I basically knew exactly which tombs to go to and got them all in like 20 minutes. Actually, my memory of this game is a lot better than I thought, because although he completed the task for getting 5 words of power, he hadn't yet completed the one for getting 5 dragon souls. So far, both of our dragon counts were at 2, but I know of a place where you can get both a word of power and a dragon soul, both in one place. Dragon lairs. I just have to remember where they are exactly. I remember them being pretty rare, but I always remember running into one here in the plains. And I remember getting this one after doing the first Mage College quest. And I think there was one here on the edge of the map somewhere. Ah, there it is. I already gotten 2 other words of power from joining the Dark Brotherhood and completing Bleak Falls Barrow. And the last remaining dragon souls were from the first dragon in the game and a random one I found flying around. This put me in a big lead. I basically cut him off of 1 task while getting 2 for myself. When we looked at the remaining tasks, it became apparent again that my cousin was fighting a battle he could not win. The tasks he had locked in would only get him to a tie with my current total. Then, when we looked at all the remaining ones up for grabs, not only would I have a head start, but he didn't know exactly how to do any of them. Or the ones he did know how to do would take hours to complete, like kill 5 dragon priests. Where the heck even is all the dragon priests? So with that, I was officially crowned the King of Skyrim. By me. To myself. Quietly. After a long weekend of close calls but no cigars, it was nice to finally put a W under my belt, but it also signaled the end of the guys' weekend. It was getting late and everyone said that since we were all gonna leave in the morning anyway, that they just wanted to sleep in their own beds. Must be nice. So we packed my cousin up, said our goodbyes, and I passed out immediately on the couch. The next day, I woke up and started the long drive home. And that's it. 3 days of competition, camaraderie, and eye strain. This is probably one of the days I look forward to most in the year. I said probably. Babe, come back. If you still have some close friends, I highly recommend trying to get a weekend like this together. Getting older, it gets harder and harder for people to come together just for a fun event like this, especially when one moves 3 hours away. But it's so rewarding. I've even heard of people renting cabins and playing board games while their kids are around all over the place. Do you have a tradition that you do with your friends? Tell me about it in the comments below. I can't wait to see all the cool stuff y'all do. And if you made it this far, holy crap, dude, I'm impressed. Thank you so much, because this is the longest video I have made, and it's taken me like 2 months to get it together. I remember just sitting there thinking, oh, I'll just talk about my cool weekend. It'll be easy, like 2 weeks tops. Nothing I ever do is easy. And if it's your first time here, welcome. Please stay a while. We got snacks. And hey, maybe just watch this video I made about burnout. I think you'll like it. Later, nerds.